Hey guys, Sophia here with turquoisetoffee.wordpress.com, and I'm back with another video. Today we are talking about how to become an IFBB Pro in 2021. And in case you missed my last video, I am super pregnant. I am 39 weeks. I should be having a baby anytime now. So if I'm not back with a video next week, that's where I am. But hopefully I'll be able to get one more video before then. So let's talk about earning your IFBB Pro card through the NPC Worldwide first. So this is for all of the international competitors, anybody who is not in the USA. So the first step is competing at a regional. And there are 15 countries that have a requirement of getting an official regional certificate confirming that they did in fact compete in a regional contest in their country not more than a year before they move on to the pro qualifier. So those countries are Australia, Brazil, Canada, Germany, Hungary, India, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, New Zealand, Portugal, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, and the United Kingdom. So you have to compete at a regional, get your official regional certificate, and then you have 1 year within that time to compete at a national or pro qualifier show. If you are in a country that isn't one of the 15 listed, we will talk about that later. Okay, so now competing at a national or a pro qualifier, the next important thing to realize is the division is made up of classes, height classes, for example. There has to be at least 5 competitors. So if you're able to find a pro qualifier show that's really small and there's only 3 people competing and you win, you're not going to get your pro card. Ugh, so frustrating. So make sure that you're picking a show that has enough competitors. You have to have that minimum of 5. And at a lot of these shows, you can see I highlighted there. So at Nationals, at Ben Wider Worldwide Classic, the Arnold Amateur Australia and Brazil, and all other pro qualifiers, to get your pro card, you have to be the overall winner. Now, of course, to be able to compete at a national show, you have to be a national of that nation. So if you want to compete at the Portugal Nationals, you have to be a Portuguese person. Okay, the Arnold Amateur is just a little bit different in that men's bodybuilding, men's classic physique, fitness, figure, women's physique, and wellness, it's the overall winner in the division who gets a pro card, just like all the others that we talked about. But in men's physique and bikini, it's the top 2 in the division that get their pro card. And then the Amateur Olympia is also a little bit different. So if there's only 1 class, then that class winner gets their pro card. If there's 2 classes, then those 2 class winners get the pro card. If there are 3 classes, those 3 class winners get their pro card. And if there is more than 3 classes in a division, it's the top 3 of the overall that get the pro card. So you have to just kind of really carefully look at the rules and figure out exactly which competition is are you most likely to be able to get your pro card. Some offer more than one, some offer just the overall. Okay, a few other notes. If you do win at one of these national or pro qualifier contests, you have to apply for your pro card before you do any other pro qualifier or compete in another league. Otherwise, you will automatically and without notice forfeit the right to apply for that card. And then a final note for our American athletes, you have to compete in an NPC contest, so something in the USA, not more than a year before you move on to competing in an NPC Worldwide regional or pro qualifier show. Okay, now let's just talk about this official regional certificate thing and these 15 countries a little bit more. So there was recently a release document from January 25th about this in particular. Because of the scheduling disruptions of last year and possibly this year, The NPC Worldwide promoters are implementing the following change effective immediately, but only for 2021. And what it is if you reside in one of those 15 countries that require the certificate, but there are no regional competitions until later, maybe it's canceled, maybe it's postponed, you are allowed to compete in a pro qualifier anywhere in the world, provided that that pro qualifier is held before the first regional competition in your country. So once you've had a regional in your country, you have to have done it to be able to do a pro qualifier. If there's no regionals happening in your country, you can try to do a pro qualifier without doing a regional first. Okay, now this led me to question, well, do you just have to do a regional or do you have to place in a regional? And I looked to all of the English-speaking countries that I could think of that were on the list, just because I'm an English speaker and I didn't want to have to hit translate to be able to read the rules. So when I looked at Australia, they actually addressed the question straight on. So for the question of how do I win a pro card, you have to compete. To compete in these shows, these pro qualifiers, you must qualify at a state level show, or in other words, a regional. Then the next question there is, do I have to place in a state show? No, you just have to compete. That's it. So in other words, you just have to participate in a regional. You don't have to get a top placing. You just have to participate, and that gets you your certificate, and then you can go to a pro qualifier. I looked also at the United Kingdom at the Two Bros page and their events. And they said if you would like to enter the Ben Wider and or the British finals, you will need to participate in a regional show prior to the pro qualifiers, okay? But it only applies if you would like to enter an open class. So open is what gets you your pro card. If you want to do a novice or beginner or any of those more specific particular classes, then you don't need to have competed at a regional first. If you're going for your pro card, they say you need to do the regional show first. And then they also add that once you've competed in a regional show in the UK, it will give you access to all other pro qualifiers globally, except for the USA. And that makes sense because you would get your certificate, right? So it's making sense so far. But then when I got to Canada, it's a little bit different. They actually have a tiered system. So you don't just participate in a regional show, you have to place. So in Canada, and I will say that these are updated qualifications as of 2020. I don't know that they are completely current. I can see already one sentence regarding the North American competition that hasn't been updated. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm just trying to show that different countries have different rules within the NPC Worldwide umbrella. But so, for example, Canada, you have to qualify for an open pro qualifier by getting a top 3. Okay? And then once you have that top 3, you can go to your pro qualifier, your national event. You have to get a top 5 at that event to be able to try again the next year. Otherwise, you would have to go back and re-qualify in a top 3. Now, they do have that other sentence there. Those not placing top 5 at one pro qualifier, you maintain your qualification to try out another pro qualifier that year. But once the year is up, you're going to have to go back and requalify at an open regional show by getting a top 3. Then, if a Canadian would like to go to a different country, there's no pre-qualification required except if you are competing in the following countries. So Australia, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Portugal, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, Netherlands, and the UK. And for those countries, you need to have an official certificate. So there is a trend here. You have to do a regional to be able to go and do a pro qualifier in another country. It's a little bit different for Canadians competing in the USA, but we can, just if you're Canadian, go to your rules, find the updated rules for 2021, and figure out what it is that qualifies you to be able to compete in the States. For example, At the Olympia Amateur, there's no qualification required, so you don't have to place in anything, but you must have competed in a Canadian contest with the CPA within that year. Okay, so then my next question was, well, what about international countries that aren't in that list that say they require the regional certificate? What about Poland? Okay, so I went to the Poland website and I found they've got a competition coming up on 15th, 16th of May, the Champions Cup, and you can see right there, it's in Warsaw, Poland, and it's a pro qualifier. And when I looked at their description, it says that the NPC Worldwide amateur competitions may be entered by both non-affiliated competitors and competitors from all national and international federations without any restrictions, qualifications, or permits. So that made me think, oh, maybe you don't need to do a regional. There's no restrictions, qualifications, or permits required. You just have to have your NPC Worldwide membership. But then further down on the page, it did say, before the first start in a pro qualifier, a competitor of the country where the regional qualifier competition is held should first compete in the regional qualifier in his home country. So it sounds like usually, at least usually, you have to do a regional in your own country before you go and do a pro qualifier somewhere else. But it's not really completely clear to me. So if anybody knows a little bit more details than what I've been able to pull out of the rules, please comment below and help clear it up. But it does seem to me like if you want to get your pro card, the first step is doing a regional in your own country. However, then I just picked another country. I thought, okay, Russia. And here is the International Russia Championship. It is a pro qualifier. It is in April 11 of 2021. And right there, do I need to qualify for this event? No qualification is required. So you do have to have your NPC Worldwide membership. And you can be a competitor in other federations, but no qualifications are required. So I believe that means you don't even have to do a regional. So even I'm left with a few questions after really, really studying these rules, but sounds like it can be fairly competition dependent. So let's just kind of summarize. How do you get your pro card if you are an international competitor and a member of the NPC Worldwide in 2021? So step one, compete in a regional show, okay? If you live in one of those 15 countries, you're going to need to get your official regional certificate, and you've got 12 months to use that to go on to step number 2. Now, depending on the rules of your country, either just participating is enough, and then you can go do a qualifier, or you have to earn a particular placing, such as we saw in Canada, you had to get a top 3. Now, if you're not one of those countries that are the 15 countries that require that regional certificate, I think you might be able to go straight to number 2. You might be able to go straight to the national qualifier, just like we saw with that Russian competition. But make sure you look at the rules of the competition first, because it seems to me like you might have to do the regional. Okay, so moving past that, you get yourself to a national or a pro qualifier. The particular competition itself will dictate what place is required to earn your pro card. So for example, the Arnold Amateur USA, both bikini first and second overall will get a pro card. Whereas the Arnold Amateur Australia, only the bikini first overall gets their pro card. Okay? Now, step 3, if you don't win at your pro qualifier, what happens? Well, you've got that regional certificate if you're in that particular country. You can just try another national or pro qualifier within that 1-year period. Or, as we saw with Canada, you might have to earn a particular placing, right? In Canada, it was the top 5 to maintain your eligibility to continue to try for your pro card. So in a nutshell, make sure you really look at the rules of the particular competition and of your particular country. So here I just thought I would show some posters and kind of try to wrap this up as best I can. So you can see on top, this is the Portuguese NPC Worldwide Regional. And then the one on the bottom is the Pro Qualifier. Now, the regional takes place on May 1st of 2021. You would have to do that first to be able to do the Pro Qualifier if you were a Portuguese citizen. And if for some reason the regional was canceled or postponed, then you would be able to do the Pro Qualifier without doing the regional first, as per that statement made just because of all of the craziness of the pandemic and all of the cancellations. And that's just a 2021 rule. And you could also go and do a Pro Qualifier in another country before May 1st of 2021. If you're Portuguese and May 1st comes along, you have to do your regional. You can't go to another country. Okay? Let's move on to our American friends, earning your IFBB Pro card through the NPC. So the USA. First of all, you have to be an American citizen or a green card holder to be able to be part of the NPC. Next, to be able to go to a national or a IFBB Pro League qualifying contest, you either have to have had competed and placed top 5 at some of these national or pro qualifying contests in 2020 or in 2021. So if you get top 5 at one of these shows, that will qualify you to try again at another one of those shows in 2021. Another way to qualify is if you get top 5 in 2020 or 2021 in an NPC national qualifier. So that's something we're going to look a little bit later at the poster. You got to make sure that it is actually a national qualifier contest. There are regional contests that are just, a contest near where you live, but they don't qualify you to go on to the nationals. So you got to make sure it actually says that it is an NPC national qualifying contest. Now, there are also a couple contests, the NPC Teenage, Collegiate, and Masters National Championships, the NPC Masters Universe Championships, and the NPC Masters USA Championships, in which you don't have to place top 5, you just have to have competed in an NPC competition. So a slightly different prerequisite for those contests. Now, for our Canadian friends, if you want to compete at North Americans, because of all the craziness of the last 12 months, North Americans is now an open event for Canadian athletes. All you have to do is be a current member of the CPA with an official letter of approval. And as for the Mexican competitors, they just have to be NPC Worldwide in Mexico competitors. It is open to everyone in Mexico for that. So slightly different rules this year. And now here I would encourage you just to press pause and take a look. If there's a particular contest that you are interested in competing at, they have different pro cards awarded for each competition. So, for example, if we look up here at the NPC Juniors, the Junior Championships, fitness is the overall winner. Whereas at the NPC National Fitness Championships, it's the top 2 in each class. Okay, so here is the nutshell, the step-by-step version of how to get your pro card in the NPC. So step 1, you're going to compete in a national qualifier in the open class, and you got to earn a top 5. And you have until December 11 of 2021 to do this. And then for certain competitions, like what we talked about, for example, the Masters Universe, all you had to do was compete in an NPC show. You didn't have to place top 5. So make sure you're looking at the rules of the particular contest that you're interested in. Next, you would compete in a national level or an IFBB Pro League qualifying contest in the open class. And as we already talked about, the particular competition will dictate what placing is required to earn your pro card. For example, at nationals, bikini is first and second place in each class. They get their pro cards. Whereas junior nationals, only the first place in each class earns a pro card. Okay, now step 3, if you don't get your pro card right away at your first pro qualifier, if you place top 5, you can just try again in this 2021 period. If you did not place top 5, then you're going to have to go back and requalify at a national qualifier. Okay? Now, there's also an alternative. We talked about it a little bit when we were looking at the NPC Worldwide. An American competitor can, step 1, compete in any NPC competition in the USA. Doesn't matter what you place, just participate in a competition. You have 1 year. You can then go to step 2, which is to go travel and compete in an NPC Worldwide regional or pro qualifier competition. So that would bypass that top 5 placing requirement, and you could go overseas. Okay, now, if you still need help choosing which contest to be doing, the Center Podium webpage had a really great article about choosing a bodybuilding contest and just what to look for and what should help you determine which show should you do. So I will post a link to their webpage because I thought it was a really great article. And one of the things that they mentioned, which I completely agree with, is it's extremely important to know the logos. So the NPC, which is the USA, and the NPC Worldwide, which is everywhere else, will lead you to the IFBB Pro League. That's what you want. You want to see those 2 beautiful bicep arms and that circle to really show you that this is leading us to the IFBB Pro League. The IFBB is completely different. You see the man and the woman there. That leads you to the IFBB Elite Pro, and that is not the same as an IFBB Pro. Okay? Really similar names, but completely different. And I can tell you, even myself, when I made my first 2 videos, I was doing a prediction video for the Arnold in figure and bikini. I just wanted to know what are some of the criteria that the judges are looking at. And I typed IFBB criteria, and I used the IFBB, which is not the same as the IFBB Pro League. It's different. Thankfully, the requirements are fairly similar: balance, proportion, symmetry, that type of thing. So it didn't affect my predictions, but it would extremely affect your ability to become an IFBB Pro. So you don't want IFBB and IFBB Elite Pro if your goal is to become an IFBB Pro and make it to the Olympia. There's absolutely nothing wrong with competing in the IFBB and the IFBB Elite Pro, but it's just a different league. It doesn't get you to Olympia. Okay, so here are some posters just to bring your attention. There are those USA, those NPC logos. So you know that this is the right federation. This will eventually get you to an Olympia. However, only the Utah Cup is a national qualifier. So if your goal is to become a pro, you have to do a show and you have to get top 5 that is a national qualifier. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing a show such as the Bayou Muscle, but as far as I can tell, it's not a national qualifier, so it's not going to allow you to move up into those steps to getting your pro card. Great experience, absolutely, but it's not in that step 1, step 2, step 3 system. It's got to be a national qualifier. Whereas here's a poster with the wrong logos. This is not what you want if you want to become an IFBB Pro and go to the Olympia. This is an IFBB, which would get you to an IFBB Elite Pro, which is completely different. Okay, so there you have it. I hope that this has helped anybody out there, any of my amateur friends, anybody who is interested in competing. Kind of the takeaway in the nutshell is really look at the rules of your own country, but also look at the particular rules of the contest that you are interested in competing at, because it seems like the regionals are important, You got to worry about your certificate if you're in one of those countries. You got to worry about your placings. So there's a lot of details, but I do hope that this helped you a little bit, at least a little bit, to understand how you go from an amateur to a pro in the IFBB Pro League. Please give me a like if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. I will hope to be back next week with another video, unless this baby comes and interrupts my scheduling. You can find me at turquoisetoffee.wordpress.com. And if you want to see me with my big, beautiful baby bump, you can find me at turquoisetoffee on Instagram. See you soon.